Luxury store. Clerk humiliates. Humble customer. When she discovers he's the owner, she kneels. If you're new here, welcome. You're about to experience a story that will not only entertain, but also teach valuable lessons about humility, respect, and the dangers of judging others by their appearance. So grab your favorite drink, get comfortable, and let us take you on a journey that might change the way you look at others forever. The gleaming chandeliers of Hartley and Pierce, Manhattan's most prestigious luxury department store, cast diamond-like reflections across the marble floors as Sarah Chen adjusted her perfectly pressed designer uniform. 23 years old, and already the youngest senior sales associate in the store's history, she took immense pride in her position and the exclusive clientele she served. That rainy Tuesday morning started like any other, with Sarah methodically arranging the latest collection of handcrafted Italian leather bags, each worth more than her monthly salary. The store had just opened, and the familiar scent of leather and luxury perfumes filled the air when an elderly man shuffled through the entrance, leaving wet footprints on the pristine floor. Sarah's perfectly sculpted eyebrows drew together as she observed his worn-out boots, faded jeans, and weather-beaten jacket. The security guard at the entrance had inexplicably let him pass, and now he was approaching her section, where the most expensive items in the store were displayed. The man's weathered hands, rough from what appeared to be years of manual labor, reached out to touch a limited edition crocodile skin briefcase worth $50,000. Sarah's throat tightened as she strode forward, her Louboutin heels clicking against the marble floor with sharp, authoritative taps. "Sir," she called out, her voice dripping with barely concealed disdain, "I believe you might be more comfortable in our outlet location downtown. These items are—" She paused, looking him up and down. "Quite exclusive." The old man turned to face her, his eyes twinkling with an unreadable expression. "Oh?" he replied softly, his voice carrying a hint of amusement. "And what makes you think I couldn't afford something from this section?" Sarah's laugh was sharp and dismissive. "Sir, this briefcase alone costs more than most people make in a year. We maintain certain standards here at Hartley and Pierce, and I'm simply trying to save us both some time." Other customers had begun to drift over, attracted by the confrontation. Sarah felt a surge of satisfaction as several regular clients exchanged knowing looks. The old man remained silent for a moment, still holding the briefcase with those rough hands that seemed so out of place in the refined atmosphere of the store. "I see," he finally said, his voice steady and calm. "And these standards you mention, they're based on appearance, are they?" Sarah's confidence wavered slightly at his composed demeanor, but she pressed on. "Our clientele typically understands the value of presentation. Perhaps I could direct you to our personal shopping service. They could help you understand what's appropriate for different establishments." The old man's eyes now held a different kind of sparkle, one that made Sarah inexplicably nervous. He reached into his worn jacket and pulled out a small leather wallet. Sarah prepared herself to deal with what she assumed would be some sort of scene about discrimination, but what happened next made her blood run cold. From the wallet, he extracted not a complaint card or a protest speech, but a simple business card. As he handed it to her, Sarah's perfectly manicured fingers trembled slightly as she read the name. James Pierce, founder and CEO, Hartley and Pierce Luxury Goods. The color drained from her face as the reality of the situation crashed over her like a tidal wave. The other customers who had gathered to watch the scene unfold grew silent, their expressions shifting from amusement to shock as they recognized the man standing before them. "I make it a point," Mr. Pierce said quietly, "to visit each of our stores regularly. Not in a suit, not announced, but as a regular customer might appear. You see, Sarah? Yes, I can read your name tag. Luxury isn't about what someone wears or how they look. It's about how we make people feel." Sarah's legs felt weak beneath her as the weight of her actions pressed down on her shoulders. Her carefully constructed world of designer labels and superficial judgments began to crumble around her. The other customers, who had moments ago shared in her disdain, now stepped back, creating a circle of isolation around her. "Mr. Pierce, she began, but her voice cracked. The words she wanted to say stuck in her throat like sharp pieces of glass. Her mind raced through all the cruel comments she'd made, the dismissive looks she'd given, and the customers she'd judged unfairly over her years at the store. The elderly CEO raised his hand gently, silencing her attempted apology. "Let me tell you a story, Sarah. When I opened this store 50 years ago, I couldn't afford a suit to wear to my own grand opening. I borrowed one from my neighbor. It was 2 sizes too big, and probably just as shabby as what I'm wearing now." Sarah felt tears welling up in her eyes as Mr. Pierce continued, his voice carrying across the now silent store floor. "A kind woman named Eleanor Hartley saw past that ill-fitting suit. She saw potential, drive, and determination. She became my business partner and helped build this empire. That's why her name comes first on every storefront." The morning light streaming through the store's grand windows seemed to dim as shame clouded Sarah's vision. Her perfectly curated image of success, the designer clothes, the sophisticated attitude, the carefully practiced way she looked down on those she deemed beneath her, suddenly seemed hollow and meaningless. "Your sales numbers are impressive, Sarah," Mr. Pierce acknowledged, surprising her. "You're clearly talented at what you do, but you've forgotten the most important part of luxury retail, the humanity of it all." Several of Sarah's co-workers had gathered at a safe distance, their faces showing a mixture of shock and recognition. How many times had they all been guilty of the same prejudices? How many potential customers had they driven away with their assumptions? Mr. Pierce picked up the briefcase again, examining it with appreciation. "You know what makes this briefcase special?" he asked, running his weathered hands over the scaled leather. "It's not the price tag or the brand name. It's the artisan in Milan who spent 60 hours hand-stitching it. He wears clothes just like mine when he works. His hands are probably even rougher than mine." Sarah felt her designer uniform, the symbol of her authority and status, becoming uncomfortably tight around her neck. The perfectly pressed collar now felt like it was choking her. The realization of how small-minded she'd been, how many people she might have hurt with her attitude, crashed over her in waves. "I should fire you," Mr. Pierce said matter-of-factly, causing Sarah's heart to stop for a moment. "That would be the easy solution. But tell me, what lesson would that teach? What change would that create?" Sarah's legs finally gave way, and she sank to her knees on the cold marble floor, not caring about her expensive uniform or what others might think. In that moment, all her carefully constructed pretenses shattered completely. Tears rolled down her cheeks, smearing her perfect makeup, but for the first time in years, she didn't care about maintaining appearances. "Please," she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. "I don't want to lose this job. I'll do anything to make this right." The irony wasn't lost on her. Here she was, kneeling before someone she had just tried to remove from the store, begging for mercy. Mr. Pierce's eyes softened as he watched the young woman's transformation. "Stand up, Sarah," he said gently. "In fact, grab your coat. We're going on a field trip." Without waiting for a response, he turned to the gathered crowd and announced that Sarah would be taking a personal development day with him. The next few hours changed Sarah's life forever. Mr. Pierce took her to places she'd never bothered to visit. First to the outlet store she'd so condescendingly recommended to him, where he introduced her to Maria, a single mother working 2 jobs to put her daughter through college. Maria's product knowledge and genuine warmth with customers made Sarah's rehearsed sales pitches seem hollow in comparison. They visited a small repair shop in a modest neighborhood, where Mr. Pierce introduced her to Tony, a master craftsman who restored luxury leather goods. His hands were rough and stained from his work, but his skill in bringing damaged pieces back to life was unmatched. "Tony saves us thousands of dollars every month," Mr. Pierce explained, "and helps us maintain our commitment to sustainability." As they sat in a small, unremarkable diner for lunch, the kind of place Sarah would have never entered before, Mr. Pierce shared more stories about his journey. He told her about the times he was kicked out of luxury stores in his youth, the rejection letters from banks, and the people who judged him based on his appearance. "But here's what you need to understand," he said, stirring his coffee thoughtfully. "Those experiences didn't make me bitter. They taught me the importance of looking beyond the surface. Every person who walks through our doors has a story, Sarah. They have dreams, struggles, and potential that you can't see from their clothes or their hands." The afternoon continued, with visits to various craftspeople and long-time customers who didn't fit Sarah's image of luxury clientele. There was the successful tech entrepreneur who preferred hoodies to suits, the retired teacher who saved for years to buy one special piece for her 50th wedding anniversary, and the young artist who looked disheveled but whose installations were collected by museums worldwide. With each stop, each conversation, each story, Sarah felt her old self dying and a new understanding taking root. She learned about the network of people who made luxury retail work, not just the polished sales associates like herself, but the delivery drivers, the maintenance staff, the craftspeople, and the diverse customers who all played their part in the ecosystem. As the day drew to a close, Mr. Pierce brought Sarah back to the store. The same chandeliers that had seemed to reinforce her superiority that morning now cast a different light, one that illuminated her transformed perspective. The store was quiet, with only a few customers browsing the evening selection. "Your final test," Mr. Pierce announced, gesturing toward a man who had just walked in. He was wearing paint-splattered work clothes and looked exhausted. Sarah's old instincts tried to surface, but she pushed them down, remembering the lessons of the day. Approaching the customer, Sarah smiled warmly. Not her practiced sales smile, but a genuine one. "Welcome to Hartley and Pierce," she said softly. "May I ask what brings you in today?" The man looked surprised at her friendly welcome. "It's my wife's birthday tomorrow," he explained hesitantly. "She's always wanted something from here, but I've never had the courage to come in before." His hands were calloused and stained with paint, reminding Sarah of Tony's skilled craftsman's hands. For the next hour, Sarah gave this customer the same attention she'd previously reserved for her wealthiest clients. She learned he was a house painter who had been saving for months to buy his wife a special gift. When he finally selected a small wallet, far from the most expensive item she could have pushed, Sarah carefully wrapped it with the same reverence she would have given to a $50,000 briefcase. The man's eyes welled up when she added a small box of luxury chocolates on the house and a handwritten note wishing his wife a happy birthday. As he left, Sarah felt a warmth in her chest that no commission had ever provided. Mr. Pierce, who had been watching from a distance, approached her. "Now you understand," he said, not as a question, but as a statement. Luxury isn't about exclusion. It's about making dreams come true, about treating everyone with dignity, about creating moments of joy. Sarah nodded, wiping away fresh tears. "I want to make changes," she declared. "Real changes." Over the next few months, Sarah worked to transform not just herself, but the store's culture. She developed a training program for new employees focused on empathy and inclusion. She initiated a mentorship program with the outlet store staff, breaking down the artificial barriers between locations. 1 year later, Sarah stood in front of the store's employees, sharing her story at the annual staff meeting. The sales numbers had actually increased under her new approach. But more importantly, the store had become a place where everyone felt welcome. Mr. Pierce sat in the back, wearing his usual worn jacket, smiling proudly. As Sarah concluded her presentation, she held up the business card that had changed her life that rainy Tuesday morning. "Success isn't measured by the price of what we sell," she said, her voice strong and clear. "It's measured by the dignity with which we treat every person who walks through these doors. True luxury isn't about excluding people. It's about making everyone feel extraordinary." The lessons Sarah learned that day continued to shape her career and life. She never forgot the humbling experience of kneeling on that marble floor and how it had led to her greatest transformation. Her story became a legend within the company, shared with every new employee as a reminder that appearances can be deceiving and that true value lies not in what a person wears, but in how they treat others. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel for more inspiring content that reminds us of the important values in life. Your support helps us continue sharing these meaningful messages that can change hearts and open minds. Remember, every person deserves to be treated with respect and dignity, regardless of their appearance or background. Until next time, keep spreading kindness and breaking down prejudices, one interaction at a time.